Okay, Ad Kan. Let's go on to our Parsha.
I also find that before and I read more and more to understand more to understand. I don't know everything in English, and then it makes more sense. I can share. No. Yeah, we'll share.
Okay. Parshas Va'era is the story of the Exodus unfolding with Moshe and Aharon bringing the plagues to Egypt and to Paro. I just want to point to one section of our Parsha which deals with the fifth plague. Is it the fifth plague? Yeah, it's the plague of boils. Sorry, it's the sixth plague. I miscounted. Okay. In the sixth plague, we find that Hashem instructs Moshe and Aharon, Kechu lachem melo chofnochem piach kivshan. I want you to take fistfuls of ash from an oven. Uzrako Moshe hashamayma le'enei Paro. And Moshe walk into Paro's court and throw the ash up in the air. And that's going to be the beginning of the plague of boils. Now this is pretty. This is dramatic. This is bravado that Moshe is showing, that something that we haven't seen in the other plagues. In the other plagues, it's either Moshe or Aaron taking their staff. That's the most dramatic action that we have. But here, this is something different. This is like a new thing. Take fistfuls of ash and throw it in the air, and that's going to trigger the plague. So something's unusual going on over here. And so that's what they do. And then in Pasuk Yud Aleph, after the plague of Shechim, that strikes both man and beast alike, the Torah tells us over here, "V'lo yachalu achartumim la'amod lifnei Moshe mipnei hashechim," that all of Paro's magicians could not stand in the presence of Moshe because of their boils. And the problem, of course, is that we hadn't heard from these magicians in quite some time. You know, the magicians were only present for the first three plagues. For the plague of blood, the magicians were able to duplicate the conversion of water to blood. For the second plague, the magicians were able to create frogs out of nothing. That was a good trick that they were able to do. By the time we get to the third plague, which was what? Kinim, lice. What did the magician say to Paro? Can't do it. Etzba Elokimhi. It's the finger of God. There's no way that we can duplicate this. This is just too much for us. And then for plague 4 and 5, they just disappear. We don't even hear about them anymore. It's like they've left. They've left the story because they leave in disgrace. Why then are they brought back for plague number 6? And the Torah says they were simply unable to even stand and come before Moshe because they too were covered with plagues. It seems to be like they are not even a relevant part of the story anymore. That's another question that we have. So we got question number 1, what's this deal with the ash throwing up in the air? The drama. What's the story with the Chartumim? And then we also have in Pasuk Yud Bet, for the very first time, it says, Vayechazek Hashem et leiv Paro, that God hardened Paro's heart. Up until now, like the Ramban says, Paro's heart was hardened, but not that God hardened his heart actively. Because up until this plague, for the first 5 plagues, God didn't need to do anything to harden Paro's heart, because he was just being obstinate. But by this plague, if God did not intervene directly and alter Paro's thoughts, Paro was ready to cave. Why? What made this plague so special? And then I want to just bring one other point. At the end of the plague of boils, which is plague number 6, Dam, Spardeya, Kinim, Arov, Dever. Dever is the 5th plague, which is what? Right. Dever is not it's a pestilence of the flocks. In other words, all of the animals got sick and died. The animals got sick with a plague and died. Right? So Moshe, for some strange reason, waits until he brings the plague of boils and then reflects back on the plague of Dever, which is plague number 5. It's a very unusual thing, and we're so used to just skipping over this pasuk. After the plague of boils is completed, Moshe comes back to Paro and tells him that if you don't let my people go, this time I'm going to open up the heavens and wreak absolute, vengeance upon you. Pasuk Tesvav then says, Ki ata shalachti es yadi, va'ach osacha ve'es amacha badover, v'tikached min haaretz. I could have wiped you all out with the plague of Dever, with the animal plague, and you would have been totally gone. But v'ulam ba'avor zot ha'emadaticha, but I let you remain alive so that you could see my strength and you could relate the experience of receiving God's retribution to all the people of the world. So Rashi, of course, tells us over here that this is exactly what Moshe was communicating to Paro. He says, Ki ilu ratziti kishahita yadi b'miknecha shehikitim badever shalachtia v'hiketi otcha ve'et amecha im ha'behemot v'tikached min haaretz. If I had wanted to, when I sent the animal plague number 5, I could have wiped you out as well. Not just the animal, I could have wiped you out too, but I kept you alive in order that you should see my wonders and spread the story of God in the Exodus to the whole world. Why is Moshe recalling plague number 5 after plague number 6 is over? It seems to be like, that's yesterday's news. What are you doing talking about the animal plague after you've just completed the boil plague? What is going on over here? So we've got 4 serious questions here. The question number 1, what's with all the drama with the ash? Question number 2, why re-involve the magicians over here when they've been absent from the story already? Question number 3, why is it now for the first time in the plague of boils that God is hardening Paro's heart actively? And question number 4 is, why is Moshe recalling the previous plague of Dever when the plague of boils is already over? Why mention plague 5 when after plague 6 is already done with? Okay, these are good questions. So I want to we'll just bring a couple of other points. Take a look at the Medrash. The Medrash Rabbi in source number 3 says, now we're all used to knowing that there are different ways of ordering the plagues. Even in the Haggadah, Rabbi Yehuda Hayanosein Bahem Simonim. Rabbi Yehuda used to categorize the 10 plagues in 3 different categories: Yitzhak, Hadash, Va'achav. So why categorize the plagues in those ways? So there are many, many different ways that the Meforshim deal with it. But look how the Medrash categorizes the plagues. It gives a whole different categorization. BAYT Moshe et matei ol hashamayim. That Moshe lifted up his staff over the heavens, and says the Medrash, Hamakota elu gimel al yedei Aharon, v'gimel al yedei Moshe, v'gimel al yedei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ve'echat al yedei kulan. We have 10 plagues. 3 were brought by Aharon. 3 were brought by Moshe. 3 were brought by Hashem himself, without any aid of Moshe and Aaron. And 1 was brought by all 3. Moshe, Aaron, and God all together brought one of the 10 plagues. Says the Medrash, Dam tzfardei akinim shayu ba'aretz al yedei Aharon. Blood, frogs, lice, all occur in the earth. That's Aharon's domain. And so he brings those plagues. Barad arbe choshech al yedei Moshe, v'fi shehin ba'avir, shekach shalat Moshe ba'aretz uvashamayim. The three plagues, hail, locust, and darkness, are plagues that occur in the air. And Moshe had dominion over the air, as we know that he was able to ascend up to Shamayim to receive the Torah. So therefore, not only is he capable on land, but he's capable in the air as well, and therefore he brings the three plagues that affect the air, which are specifically hail, locusts, and darkness. Okay? But what are the ones that Hashem brought? Okay? Arov, Dever, Makat, Bichorot, wild animals, animal pestilence, and the plague of the firstborn, Ayedei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That comes by the hand of God. Why? Because God is responsible for bringing life and death to all living creatures. And therefore, only God himself can bring these plagues because they cause death, either through people getting mauled, or through animals dying, or through the firstborn dying. And then what's the one that was brought by all of them? Shechin. You probably never heard this before. This is a new one, huh? Shechin al yedei kulan. The plague of boils specifically was brought by all three, by God, Moshe, and Aharon. So what does this mean? What is this trying to communicate to us? What makes Shechin so special? So I'm going to tell you what I think is going on over here with the last couple of minutes, and then we'll try to put it all together very quickly. After the first 5 plagues, Moshe had successfully demonstrated to Paro and to all of Egypt that Hashem has mastery over all of their environment. The waterways, the earth, the animals. Hashem controls everything. The one thing that has not yet been demonstrated is that Hashem has mastery over human beings as well. And it's important to note that with every plague was a double-edged sword. Not only does Hashem have mastery over all of these things in the world, but you, Paro, have complete, absolute zero power over in all of these things. That's the double-edged sword, is that not only does it demonstrate Hashem's power, but they also at the same time demonstrates Paro's powerlessness. So, blood shows you have no control over the Nile. You used to say, like the scripture writes in the Navi, Liya Oriva Ani Asitini, I am the Nile is mine, and I am the one who creates it, says Paro. Nothing doing. We can turn the Nile to blood. Frogs, the same thing. Kinim, lice come out of the earth. You have no control over the very earth you walk on. You have no control over the animals. The one thing that has not yet been demonstrated is that up until then, at least human beings were not directly affected. But now it gets personal to the human being. The human being is directly affected by the plague. And this was the most important plague up to its point, up until that point, because it brought the oppression and the demonstration of Hashem's power to a whole new level. Up until that point, Paro could have said, okay, I know we're suffering from a very vengeful God who's trying to pull us apart, but we're going to stay together as a people. Chevra, we can do this, right? When the going gets tough, the tough get going, we'll all stay together. But now that Hashem has affected each and every individual within Egypt, and it becomes personal to every person, Paro can't even muster that together from the people. It's one thing to say, I won't go outside for a few days, but now I'm personally ill, that's not something that I can tolerate anymore. And so that demonstrates Hashem's power over the human and Paro's powerlessness over consolidating his people. And that's why it was such a powerful plague, because it was a complete game changer. It brought everything to a new level. Because the one thing that a king is capable of doing is amassing loyalty and unity among his subjects. Once he loses that, he's lost everything. Now that we understand that, we can go through our 4 questions and understand the answer to all of these. The reason why Hashem wanted Moshe to be so dramatic as to go march over to Paro and throw the ash up into the air is because he wanted Moshe to show that there's human intervention in the bringing of this plague as a challenge to Paro. Let's see you get your magicians back and see if they can duplicate this, because this was the provocation. The whole point of this plague was to demonstrate that you're not going to be able to muster your people together to stand behind you. So I have to do something very dramatic as a human being, as God's people, to show that we're provoking you. Let's see if you can match this. That's why Moshe was so dramatic in his physical actions. That's why the pasuk afterwards says, the Chartumim just didn't even want to get out of bed. And it wasn't like they were going to Paro and say, Paro, we're with you. Yeah, you go, Paro, but we just can't do this. No. They didn't even want us to get out of bed and stand up and appear before Paro. Everyone basically said, Paro, you're on your own at this point. We're not even here to rally you forward because we can't take this anymore. It also explains why the Torah says that God hardened Paro's heart at this point. This is the first time that Paro is really ready to cave because he sees he has no kingdom anymore. And as far as our fourth question, this is the first time, the question was, why does Moshe wait until here to tell Paro that I could have destroyed you with the animal pestilence? Because up until the plague of boils, Paro was able to delude himself into thinking, well, maybe their God only can control plants and animals and water, but he can't control humans. Maybe God, just because he was able to destroy the animals, was not able to destroy us. And that's why he only brought a plague to the animals and not to us. But once the plague of Shechin has been demonstrated, that God has mastery over the human condition as well, Moshe goes back and says, you see, God, it's not that God couldn't kill you with the plague of animals. He could have killed you back then also by making you all get sick and dying just like the animals. But God has kept you alive. He gave you boils to make you feel miserable, but not enough to kill you. And you're going to see what's going to ensue next, because it's just going to get intensify and get worse and worse and worse. You're not going to die. We want you to stay alive to be our witnesses as to what Hashem's power is. But I guess the most important thing to remember, the takeaway from all of this is, if you've been able to follow this thesis, is the thing to remember is once a community cannot work cooperatively, then no matter how much the oppression is from the outside, we've lost. We've already lost. If a community can work together cooperatively and put aside their differences and say, no matter how much the oppression from the outside is, we're all going to work together, then you always have a fighting chance to win. That's a lesson for Klal Yisrael to take itself as well. As I mentioned on Shabbos, one of the biggest problems that we have is that the Jewish world is so divided between the rightists and the leftists that we don't even know what real anti-Semitism is. The left says anti-Semitism is coming from the right says anti-Semitism is coming from the left. And if we can't even identify among ourselves what the biggest threats to the Jewish community are, we're never going to get anywhere. Have a wonderful day, everybody.